We're looking at Sefer Ha-Aggadah in Midrashim that speak about the Bet HaMikdash. It's the second temple. It's on page 130 of Sefer Ha-Aggadah. And we could say in general, the view of the rabbis in the Midrash is not very positive of the second temple in general. They felt that the Kohanim were not at the level that was expected of them. But some rabbis even have reservations with the korbanot in general. One of them here, Rabbi Pinchas b'Shem Rabbi Levi, gives us a midrash that we could say was the basis for the approach of Maimonides to the korbanot. Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, when he speaks about the sacrifices, he sees them as a compromise of God with the people, meaning that ideally we should not bring sacrifice. And that's an interesting question, when people think of the rebuilding of the third temple, and we constantly speak in the tefillah about Ve'ishei Yisrael tfilatam me'era be'ava tekabel beratzon ve'olot na'aseh lefanecha uzvahim be'bet mikdashech. All these prayers that speak about how we are going to bring the sacrifices when Bet HaMikdash will be rebuilt, when Maimonides says clearly that this is a compromise, that this was given to the people because they didn't know any other way to worship God. So the question is, today the people don't bring animal sacrifices to God, to their gods. So are we going to continue in the same manner? Also, according to those who say that when Mashiach comes, everybody will be vegetarian, or at least we will only kill animals when we need and not waste, not kill more than what we need. Are we going to have the same type of work in Bet HaMikdash? There are those who say that the only korban, only sacrifice that will continue in the temple will be menachot, meaning flour, korbanot, and not animals. But for now it's a theoretical question. We'll wait until the Bet HaMikdash will be rebuilt. But here's the source for what Maimonides says. Ish mi bet Yisrael asher yishhat. This is pasuk in Vayikra. The Torah says anyone who slaughters an animal and did not bring this animal to be slaughtered at the opening or at Oel Moed, at the Mishkan, will be punished. So the Torah wanted the people to bring their animals to be slaughtered at the temple. Later on, when they came into Eretz Yisrael, and geographically it was impossible, because the desert and the tabernacle, they were in a relatively small space. But when they entered Israel, they were scattered over a very large territory. So in Israel, the Torah said you could if it's too far for you could eat meat wherever you live. But other than that, the Torah says bring it to the Bet HaMikdash. So Rabbi Pinchas b'Shem Rabbi Levi Amar, משל לבן מלך שגס ליבו עליו והיה למד לאכול בשר נבלות וטרפות. So there was this prince who wasn't very refined. It was maybe was a hunter or something, and he used to eat nevelot utrefot. Now when the Midrash says nevelot utrefot, it doesn't refer to the halachic definition of nevela utrefa. Because nevela utrefa, by halacha, is an animal that was slaughtered in a kosher manner, but either something went wrong with the shechita, and then it's called terefa, that's called nevela, or there was an inner blemish or a wound that rendered it terefa. So to eat that meat is not, it's not kosher, but not libo gas alav. Libo gas alav meaning that person is a crude, unrefined person. So it rather refers to the pshat of the nevela or terefa as it's meant in the Torah. Nevela is an animal that died by itself. Terefa is an animal that was killed by a predator. So for a person to eat that, you really need someone with no manners, no sensitivity. Because who was going to eat from the meat of a carcass, like just being dead, lying by the roadside? So this is not an appropriate behavior, and that's the prince. So what is the king going to do? Amar HaMelech ze yeh tadir al shulchani u'me'atzmo hu gadur. Meaning, let the king has a royal palace, maybe has many descendants from his 1,000 wives, so not everyone gets to eat with the king. But the king says this particular child, because because he's lacking manners, let him eat with me every day, and naturally he will learn manners. That's the mashal. What is the analogy? כך לפי שהיו ישראל להוטים אחר עבודה זרה במצרים והיו מביאים קורבניהם לשעירים. Says Bnei Israel were devout pagans. They were so deeply immersed in paganism, and they would bring their sacrifices to what they believed to be demons and supernatural powers. So God says, אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא, יהיו מקריבים לפניי בכל עת קורבנותיהם באוהל מועד, ויהיו נפרשים מעבודה זרה והם ניצולים. So God says, let them bring those korbanot, instead of sacrificing them to demons and supernatural powers, let them sacrifice it in the temple. Meaning that the message of Rabbi Pinchas here is, God is not interested in sacrifices. He doesn't need anyone to feed him. That later on they quote the pasuk from Tehillim, chapter 50, where God says, "Im er'av lo omar lach, ha'ochal b'sar abirim v'dam atudim eshteh." God said, what do you think? You think that you feed God with your sacrifices? He says, even if God were hungry, you wouldn't be the one to satisfy his hunger, because the whole world belongs to God. He can take whatever he wants. So obviously this is not the idea. So the rabbis were against the principle, the idea that we give something to God. God doesn't need it, and they say it started as a compromise. That God sees that the people are so immersed in paganism, and that's the only way they know how to worship their idols. He says, let's elevate your practice and bring it into the realm of Judaism, of monotheism. So ideally, once we learned to live our life as believers in monotheism without korbanot, we don't need them. So that's the question, what will happen in the future? But on a side note, we could say that in many cases, the tefillah, which came to substitute the korbanot, has the same problems of the korbanot of the past. Because people think that they offer something to God, they give God something. If you come to tefillah and you reflect on what you say, and you think of what you're saying, and you're inspired by it, and when you walk out of the Beit Knesset, you're not the same person who walked in, then there was benefit. But if you come in and say, okay, what does God need from me? He needs me to read now from page 50 to page 85. Okay, here I am, punch my card, 35 pages, walk out, thank you very much. God lets me, now I can go do whatever I want, right? So God says, if I need praise, I'm not going to get it from you, right? I have, to continue the analogy, God says, I have in Gan Eden rows of poets like Rabbi Yehuda Levi, Rabbi Shlomo ben Gabirol, they could write beautiful poetry, they could say beautiful prayers. I don't need, even though, of course, the pasuk says, that it's the living who praise God, but the idea is that the praise or the tefillah is first for us to be inspired, but also to think of what we say, not in a way that we offer God something. So this is one midrash. Another midrash rebukes the Kohanim. This is in Vayikra Rabbah, and they say this: Ma'aseh be'isha ahat she'eviya kometz shel solet. That woman, the Torah says that there are certain korbanot, they're called korban oleh ve'yored, or we're called an adjustable korban. Depending on the financial ability of the person who brings the korban, he either brings a calf, or turtle doves, or some flour. If he can't bring a calf or a lamb, he bring 2 turtle doves. When he can't bring even the turtle doves, then he should bring solid, he should bring flour. So that woman brought the flour as a korban. והיה הכהן מבזה עליה ואומר, מה הן מקריבות? מה בזה לאכול? מה בזה להקריב? The Kohen rejected her. He says, go away. I don't need to bring your korban. There's nothing in it for me. But once I take what's called the kometz, he has to take a fistful of flour and put it on the fire, and the rest he should split between him and her. He says, it's not worth it for me. I cannot invest time in your korban. So this is the deterioration, the moral deterioration of the Kohanim, where the Kohanim have to take care of the people. Instead, they're thinking of, okay, how much can I get from their korban to fill my coffers? Says, do not degrade her or reject her, because for her it's her nefesh, it's her life. And I've seen something like that many years ago in one of the synagogues. Actually, I was visiting. The rabbi was traveling to Israel for Lag BaOmer. So, everybody in the synagogue came to bid farewell to the rabbi, Nesi'ah Tova, have a safe trip. And one poor man, just like, this poor woman of the Midrash, came and gave the rabbi $1. Because we have this minhag, this practice, that you give shliach mitzvah, because we say if you travel to do a mitzvah, you're protected. So we have this practice to give a $1 or a coin for tzedakah, and we tell the person, I appoint you my messenger to give tzedakah, and we believe this protects the people. One of my friends even does that. In order for you not to confuse the dollar with other dollars, he folds it into a little airplane. So this for your flight. Fine. So the man comes and he gives the rabbi the $1.
Woman.
No, the man in this case. And the rabbi, very, very gently, very politely, I saw that, I was shocked, pushes his hand away with the $1, and he's like, no need. My whole trip for is a mitzvah. Like he says, I don't need to take the $1. I don't need your protection because I'm traveling for a mitzvah, so I'm fine. And I was looking at that, I said, what does it cost you? Take the $1, put it in your wallet, right? And give it to tzedakah. Give it to tzedakah even now. Just make him feel good. You can't even make the person feel good. That's terrible. So many years later, someone called me and says, this rabbi and his son, whole family got entangled in a terrible corruption scandal. I said, yes, so? He said, well, you're not surprised? I said, I'm not surprised. Since the $1, I knew that something was wrong. So that is another story in the Midrashim of Vaikar Rabbah. Here, now, something even, in terms of transgression, goes further than that. This appears in the Gemara. Shanu Rabotenu, Ma'aseh b'shnei kohanim shehu shneim shavim v'ratzim v'olim b'kevesh. Two kohanim were running up the ramp to the altar was big, and the Mishnah says the ramp was 32 amot, but 32 feet. Just the run of the ramp, and they all wanted to do one of the mitzvot that had to do with removing the remnant, the ashes, the truma, the deshen from the mizbeach. So after this incident that we're going to read, they started casting lots to decide who could do it, because they were fighting over it. In this case, they were both running up the ramp, and when one of them saw that the other one is going to get there first, when he was ahead of him, natal sakin v'taka'lo belibo. The other Kohen took his knife, he has the ritual knife, right, and stabbed him in his heart. Amad Rabbi Tzadok al ma'alot ha'ulam ve'amar. So one of the rabbis was a Kohen, Rabbi Tzadok a Kohen, stood there and rebuked the people while this is happening, and they're all crying. Ba aviv shel tinok u'metzao keshu mefarper. The father runs up. Tinok means a teenager, 16, 17. The father of this young Kohen, they tell him, your son, they didn't have 911, Magen David Adom, Red Cross back then. So he runs up the ramp and he says, Hareu kaparatchem va'adayim beni mefarper. He says, may he be your kapara. But he says, he's still alive. So what? He's still alive, so what do we do? Right, save him, rush him to the hospital, take him out. Man, he says, no. Velo nitma sakin. He said, thank God. The knife that stabbed him is still pure, because if he would die, the sakin would become impure. that the Gemara concludes, ללמדך שקשה עליהם טהרת כלים יותר משפיכות דמים. They cared more about the purity of their instruments than about bloodshed. Now, depends who reads that. You know, even after the rebuke of the Gemara, people read that and come to different conclusions. I know people who read that and say, you see, this man, this Kohen, what spiritual level, what a tzaddik. Even when his son was about to die, he knew that he had a few minutes to live, and he cared about saving the knife. It's amazing. What a righteous person. But what the Gemara was trying to say, sorry for the word, they're idiots. They call them Kohen Hediot. Hediot means simple men, right? They're idiots. They destroyed the whole idea of the service in Beit HaMikdash. It's all about peace. It's all about working together. Instead, one of them kills the other. They don't even care about murder. It became a regular thing. And the same criticism can be directed at the rabbinic establishment today. Kasha aleim ta'arat kelim yoter mishfichut damim. You know how many cases I had where the rabbi would call a person, not me, but I heard from people, they called me afterwards, said, we had a bar mitzvah planned. It was between Yud Zayin B'Tammuz to, they didn't know, this happened, they scheduled a bar mitzvah between Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Rosh Chodesh Av, which according to Sfaradim, there's no problem. They scheduled everything, they made invitations and everything. And then the caterer, the last minute, calls him to say, I cannot cater. The rabbi says it's asur. Those people would have gone to a non-kosher place. For them, that moment, when they told them, we cannot cater for you, was shifichut damim. They embarrassed them, they caused them pain. All for what? For taharat kelim. For one minhag that was questionable to begin with. The Sfaradim never adopted. A million cases like that. People are being told, don't go visit your friends, don't eat here, don't eat there. They spill each other's blood by embarrassing them, all in the name of religion. But they don't really go into the detail of it. So obviously what happened because of that, we lost the temple. So we have to be careful not to lose what we still have.